Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video where today we are here in Shanghai for episode 5 of our F124 Hot Laps and Setup series. As always, if you're just interested in skipping to a certain part of the video, timestamps will be linked down below. But yeah, Shanghai, one of the most brutal tracks and in my honest opinion, worst tracks on the F1 games. I find the curbs around here are very outdated and I just don't find this track particularly enjoyable to drive, with maybe the exception of kind of the first sector or so. Obviously a couple of horrible snail sections here. This track is really horrible on all of your tyres. However, because the softs don't last, it is a one-stop strategy, mediums over to hards. You want to be pitting about lap 11 or lap 12, but you've absolutely got to nurse the tyres around here. 2 DRS zones, although only really the first one down the back straight is the important one that you need to focus on. But yeah, this place I find terrible for hot lapping as well, simply put because that final corner is absolutely brutal. But of course, if you are enjoying this series, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed as well for daily hot lap videos. Of course, tomorrow we'll be out in Miami, but let's head out and then onto the circuit and show you guys what you need to be looking for here in Shanghai. Well, making your way then out of the final corner, by the time you get down towards turn 1, you're going to be all the way up in 8th gear. But really, actually, the precision round here comes in slightly before that. I like to get the car over right on the left-hand side, pretty much as you go under the start gantry, simply because there's a bump. Pretty much, I mean, you'll feel it in your wheel in just a second. There you go. And I seem to find that being over on the left-hand side actually makes it slightly easier than anywhere else on the circuit. Down in towards turn 1 though, you want to be looking at the 50-meter board. Of course, we all know this snail section here. There isn't actually much braking that you need to do early on. It is all about just trying to make sure that you keep the car balanced and rotated in there. Down into 7th pretty much immediately as you flick it in, and then you're so slowly going to be going down into 6th, 5th, and then 4th gear there. Just as you see that little bump, I'll try and go over on the inside actually. I like to go down to 3rd gear there, just to make sure I've scrubbed enough speed up into the corners. You can see, yes, it just kind of hits that little bump on the inside. That's what you want to be looking for there. Now you want to obviously start trying to get the car in towards the apex. I tend to use 2nd in race trim, but 3rd gear in this qualifying lap. And then you can see as you make your way in towards the second part of the corner, try to avoid using the brakes. Just roll off the throttle to carry the speed through. Otherwise, you find that you're under-rotating the front inside wheel, and it makes things very difficult to manage. 3rd gear, 4th gear on the exit. You want to open up the car back over to the right-hand side as you go all the way over to 5th. And then 6th gear. Of course, this next kind of right-hand kink is not really anything, so you don't need to worry about that. You're going to be all the way over to 7th gear before you spot your braking at the 100-meter board. 2nd gear on the way in. I find the best thing to do is just avoid this curb. Get as close to it as you can, but avoid it there, because on the inside, although it doesn't show it, the gravel texture is actually right up to the inside of that curb. So it is really brutal there as well. If you get a bit of dirt on your tyres, these next S's are going to be horrible there. 6th gear on the way in. You might find yourself up in 7th if you've used some overtake mode, but go down into 6th gear, leave it right on the limit. It is completely flat, this first part of this corner, but you want to keep it over on the left-hand side, ready to downshift once as you go past the outside curb, flick it in, avoid the curbing on the inside as well, down into 4th gear, allow the car to move away slightly from the apex and then into 3rd as you use that little runoff area on the outside there to flick the car in. That's where your turning point is. On half throttle on the exit, go back into 4th gear. That's when you can really put your foot down through the second part of that exit curb. But here, don't go over this curbing. Just as these two curbs meet, there is a horrible bump that is going to scrub off speed there. So try and make sure you got the car back off of the curbing before you get onto the second part. And then again, you're going to be all the way up in 6th gear here. Braking at the 100-meter board on your way in. Wanted to go for a really late apex. The yellow sausage curbs are horrible. 2nd gear through there. Trying to compromise the first part to get a better run on the second, because you really want to try and get the car rotated through. I like to short shift up to 3rd and then 4th gear. Although you've got a lot more traction inside F124, it is still not that easy to put the power down. And then again, it's just the line of least resistance out into the back straight. Again, there's a bump on the exit of that curb, so avoid it at all costs. And then you're heading your way down at this monstrous back straight. Open up the DRS pretty much as you reach 8th gear, and then you get a bit of a chance to breathe, focus on obviously what the other cars around you are doing, and whether you want to be lining up a move there. In towards this penultimate corner, I actually find it slightly easier to out-brake myself slightly, so we're braking pretty much on the 100-meter board there on your way into the corner. But this curb on the inside, it looks very flat. It actually isn't. I actually find it easier to avoid it completely there on the entry. And then you can see, obviously, the circuit kind of opens up on the exit. Nice and smooth there as you go back up into third gear. And then all the way back up into sixth, ready for the final corner of the lap. This one, easily the worst of the lot. And just as you go under the gantry, as you reach the 50-meter board, down one gear, flick it in. I would say in qualifying trim, yeah, take the risk, go over that curb. Otherwise, you want to be aiming just to keep it on the other side of the yellow sausage curb there. Really, really careful not to run too wide on the exit. Otherwise, you will invalidate your lap time. I did that so many times during my practice trying to get the lap hooked up here. But there we go, up towards the line. That is going to be a lap of the Shanghai circuit. Like I said, a really, really difficult one to try and get hooked up and nailed here. But when you do, it is quite satisfying. Yeah, just do not enjoy driving on this circuit. So let's head back to the garage and take a look at the setup. Well, as you can see then at the end of our lap, we set a 1:30.4 then, so about 1.5 seconds off of the top times. That's kind of where I'm aiming for inside F124 there, and you can see 400th in the world at the moment. But yeah, taking a look then in at the setup, it's very, very difficult to find a right balance around here because, of course, you're using so much downforce through most of the lap. But that back straight is absolutely monstrous as well. I found 29.25 works for me. The other big thing, of course, you want to be careful of here is actually not running too much downforce that potentially you damage the tyres as well then. So 29.25 I found is a good balance. If you feel you haven't got enough straight line speed, I would say maybe look as low as like 25.22. But if you're struggling through the corners, I wouldn't go much higher than 33.30 to be completely honest here. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle in a race distance. 35.45 for the differential. Again, through those snail sections, this is such a traction-intensive circuit that you really want to make sure that those rear wheels can spin independently. And, of course, as always, 30 on the engine braking works for myself there. Minus 3.2, minus 1.8 on the cambers. Again, like I say, everywhere this year, where you've got so much front end on this game around a circuit like Shanghai, you've really, really got to focus on fine-tuning the setup so that you've got the grip on the exits of the corners there. You want to be able to get into full throttle in second or third gear pretty much everywhere. So being able to roll on that throttle nice and early, having confidence in the rear end, but also making sure that you're not chewing up the tyres there. And 0.12 and 0.10 on the toe out as well. 28.13 on the suspension. One of the more extreme suspension settings we've had so far in this series. Yeah, I find it seems to work, of course, because again, you want that tight front end. You want to be able to tip it into that final corner or turn one. But of course, you need the rear suspension a little bit softer to allow the rear of the car to squat and to obviously put some power down at the rear of the circuit there. 13.11 on the anti-roll bars. Again, these you run a lot more neutral. And then 27.63 on the ride height. The curbs here are lethal. If you find you're using too much curb, maybe consider upping it to 30.66. But if you're not struggling too much, then maybe you can lower it down to 25.60 and it might work slightly better for you. 97.54 on the brake bars for me. And then tyre pressures here are slightly compromised to try and make sure you don't cook the rubber in the race. 24.3 on the front, 21.4 on the rear. But honestly, I found even then it can be a little bit touch and go with temperatures. So I would say even whack it up to 25 on the front and 22 on the rear as well then. But there we go, a setup and a track guide here for Shanghai. Hopefully this video has helped you out as well. Like I mentioned in the intro, we will be obviously at Miami next time out as well. Of course, these setups are still coming out daily, so thank you all so much for watching, and I will let you guys enjoy a hot lap to round out.